Welcome to the regular meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Citizens who are interested in participating in the public portion of this meeting are asked to do a couple of things. First thing we would want you to do is, if you do want to speak during this meeting live and in living color, it's on channel 13, you need to get a card just outside of the Commissioners' meeting room, fill it out, and give it to Ashley Sloop, the clerk to the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners, and she will have that information for us from you, and that'll work very well. On the other hand, for those who are watching on television, the telephone number we want you to call is 336-422-1200. You'll be placed on hold until the public hearing begins, and that will happen probably within the next half hour. Again, that phone number, if you want to call in, is 336-422-1200. Members of the audience who are interested in this particular portion of the program, which has to do with the public session, be sure and fill out your card and give it to Mrs. Sloop. That'd be very helpful to us. We'll begin our meeting with an invocation from the Reverend Lonnie Pittman of Mount Tabor United Methodist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. Please stand if you can.
Thank you for this opportunity. May we go to God in prayer. Oh, gracious God, we come to you in a spirit of prayer and unity. First, Lord, I would like to say that I am personally thankful for each and every one of these servants at today's meeting. Thank you, Lord, for their commitment to our communities. Thank you, Lord, for their willingness to serve in a role on behalf of something greater, something meaningful. May your eternal wisdom be the guiding force behind the conversations to come today and in the future, Lord. And God, we also thank you. Thank you for the blessings upon this wonderful county and all the people who live here. We thank you, God, for the gift of autumn and all the beautiful changing colors that we see around us in this state that we love. May we never take for granted the gift of each day. May we live with a sense of purpose and passion to make a difference in our world, your world. And it is in your holy name we pray, O God. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will begin our meeting today with Joshua Swift, who is the Public Health Director in Forsyth County. He is going to give us an update on the problems, needs, and interests related to that two-letter word, COVID-19. Mr. Swift, it's good to have you with us today.
Good to be here. Thank you, Commissioners. Get the slides up.
I just noticed you put your mask on. That's good.
Thank you, Ashley. So I'll have just a brief update, 5 quick slides I'll do. As of yesterday, we reported 62 cases in the last 24 hours in Forsyth County. Our 14-day total is now under 900. For the past 14 days, our average cases per day over the past 2 weeks, 64. You can see our percent positivity for 11/1 was 5.2%, so we're inching closer to that gold standard of 5% or below. Total deaths, sadly, since the beginning of the pandemic is 567. We've had over 100 between September 1 and November 1 in Forsyth County. 68% of our county, I'm happy to say, is fully vaccinated. That's for adults. And now 73% are at least partially vaccinated. You can see our level of community transmission. This is based on CDC rates of cases per 100,000. We're still at high, but we're just at the bottom of that ranking. So we hopefully will go into moderate very soon. This next slide shows you the number of cases per week that we've had. This is showing the history since May. You can see where we were in late August during the Delta surge. Now you can see we're under 400 cases per week. We're not where we were at the low time in June and July, where we had literally 40 cases per week, but you can see we are very, very well below our peak of almost 1,500 cases. The next slide is looking at the percent positivity. Based on this, you can see this is based on a weekly average. We were close. We were at 14% in our peak. We're now teetering at 5.3, 5.6%. So we hope that that number doesn't level off. We hope it We hope it decreases as it has done over the past 6 to 8 weeks. Next slide. This is just a different way to look at something I've been sharing with you for 19 months now, or ever since we started vaccine, over almost a year. You can see the percent of our population that is fully vaccinated. Now, the way that fully vaccinated is now classified is based on individuals that have had at least 2 doses of Pfizer or Moderna or 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson. This is not based on if a person has had the booster or a 3rd dose. So you can see the percentage of persons that are fully vaccinated among African Americans, white, and Hispanic, and then you can see the rate broken down by age. It's interesting when you look at the numbers, especially 65 to 74-year-olds and 75 plus, those numbers, and even the 50 and 64-year-olds continue to tick up every week or so. You can see it's now we're at 90% of those 75 and older who are fully vaccinated. And you can see, as I stated earlier, 68% of adults are now fully vaccinated. So my last slide, and the slide that you're probably most interested in hearing about right now, is regarding the Pfizer 5 to 11-year-old vaccine. So that just became available. We just got standing orders late yesterday. And our plan working, I'd like to thank Todd Luck, communications director here, or communications, been doing a yeoman's task throughout the pandemic covering our work. But he put a press release together that went out yesterday. Atrium, Wake Forest Baptist, Novant, Forsyth County Department of Public Health, and St. Peter's Outreach Center, which is a state site. Those are the places where you can get the vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds. Vaccine at the Department of Public Health through the week, Monday through Friday, adults and children will be available to get that. You can see our hours, 8 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thursdays, 8 to 8. But we will start the 5 to 11-year-olds because there's training that has to be done for our staff. We're dealing with a different dosage of vaccine, a different type needle, and really, what we're thinking about, and we're really excited about as a public health department, we're thinking about this, think about in the 50s when the polio vaccine came out. I'm sure, I'm not going to guess anybody's age, but I know that there's people that are still thinking about that. Mm-hmm. About, hey, I remember when I went to the health department, or I remember I went here to get this. So knowing that in 20, 30, 40 years, these 8, 9, 10-year-olds are going to be 30, 40, 50, they're going to be older and they're going to be thinking about this. So, we're really excited to be offering this to help our community. And really, I see it as we've been on a long road. We've been through a lot in our community, and I think this is those final steps out of the pandemic, the boosters and this vaccine for 5 to 11-year-olds. So our partnership is with Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, offering the vaccine on the 13th at Conoke and Gibson Elementary Schools. They'll be able to take kids from other schools, just like we did in the spring at Carver and Parkland and Northwest Middle and Mineral Springs when the vaccine was available for 12 to 17-year-olds. But our Saturday operations, which this Saturday the 6th is when we'll start the first vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds. These are the dates. I shared this with you before. We're going to require appointments early on so we can manage the vaccine, so we can make sure we have enough vaccine. We have the preparations in hand for that. Also that we can make sure it's a pleasant experience for not only the children, but the parents and guardians. So I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Swift?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to require the kids to sit there 15 minutes after they get their shot?
I'm not going to require it, but the CDC will. But
Have you had any negative response
we're
in that 15 minutes for anybody?
As far as just getting bored, or well, thankfully a lot
What
of
is
people.
the reason for it?
Well, it's to, if there's any reactions, it's a safety precaution. Some people actually, if they've had a negative experience in the past with vaccines, which that they're asked to sit for 30 minutes. We hope dearly that there's no children that are in that ballpark, that in that area. But again, what we're doing is we're trying to revamp our operations. We have giveaways. We've got some toys. We're going to have music. We're going to have TV going. So trying to make it as pleasant of an experience as possible.
But you're going to still require them, or Dr. Ole is, that they have to sit there 15 minutes after the shot?
Yes.
Okay.
But thankfully, a lot of kids have that iPad. I encourage them to bring the iPad.
And maybe we could remind folks of that in our marketing, just as a reminder. 15-minute wait after the shot.
Any further comments or questions for Mr. Swift?
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fleming Elamine.
Thank you, Mr. Swift, for the presentation. I understand Collidum is also working with the health department.
Yes.
You can actually get in free if you get the shot, or how does it work?
Yeah, I think the date is, it's either the 13th or the 20th. I'd have to check, but I think it's the 13th, actually. We're going to be offering that, and they'll be able to get in at no charge.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Swift. Appreciate your being here. Once again, those of you who would like to speak during the public session of our meeting, if you want to speak within this confine, the Commissioners' meeting room, I've noticed a lot of folks in the audience have picked up the opportunity to go out into the lobby, pick up a card, and give it to Ashley Sloop, who is the clerk to our board, and she is taking those. Once again, we'll have her giving us the information when you're ready to speak, and that won't be too far off now. And we also are telecasting this on cable, and so this meeting is being seen on Channel 13 by a number of people. And if you are watching and you would like to comment on some problems, needs, or interests within our community, I think all you have to do is give us a call at the number we gave earlier. Now, one last thing. This being November, we're fast approaching Thanksgiving and the holidays are upon us. The commissioners will meet this month, but just as a matter of information, I don't know if you can write this down. You might want to put it in the back of your mind, though. November 4th, we're meeting today. However, November 11th is Veterans Day, and there will be no meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. That's on November 11th. There are a number of events taking place on that particular day as well. November 18th, we will meet. However, November 25th, 1 week later, we will not meet because of the Thanksgiving holidays. So to kind of make a note of that, because if you're planning to attend all of the meetings, there are a couple of them that you'll be the only one here, as far as I know. Today, we're briefing our agenda for the December 2nd meeting. Hard to believe we're that far into it, but it's exactly what we're going to do today. And now, I would like to begin our meeting officially, where we're going to vote, and I'm glad to see that our top man coming in from the City County Planning Board today is standing by. I would like to ask you if you would do me a small favor, because when we were all born, we were born and given a name. And this name, I don't want to mispronounce. I think it's German, and I'm going to let you make the mistake.
I will do that,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman, County Commissioners. This is a rezoning request for F-1608. The petitioner is BROOKBERRY Farm LLC, Berkley von FEILITZSCH, and HERIBERT von FEILITZSCH. This is a 212 approximate acre site located west of BROOKBERRY Farm Circle, east of Kettner Road, and south of Cedarmere Drive. The request is the petitioner is proposing modifications to the illustrative master plan and development conditions for BROOKBERRY Farm that the commissioners originally approved back in 2004. Here is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area map. It is located within the Suburban Neighborhoods Growth Management Area in between the activity centers that are on Robin Hood and Country Club Road. This is the subject property, a part of the BROOKBERRY Farms development, highlighted in yellow, and you'll notice again that it is located to the west of Meadowlark Drive and just to the east of the future Beltway there on the western side of the subject property. This is the subject property shown highlighted in yellow on the countywide aerial photography, again with the Beltway alignment shown there on the western side. This is an an image of the subject property, Maple Chase Road. Site is in the background at the end of that road. That road will continue on into the subject property. This is Hilly Creek Lane. The site is in the background. This is in the Covington Place subdivision located to the south of the subject property. You see the sign there in the distance. That's the subject property for this request today. This is the area plan map. The subject property is located in the West Suburban Area Plan update, and the recommended land use is residential, and that is what the request is still for. It's just a modification to the layout of the master plan and some of the conditions. The approved master plan from 2003-2004 is on the left. The proposed master plan is on the right. It has the same connections essentially shown in between the two versions, and essentially the same kind of layout. There's probably a couple more cul-de-sacs in the proposed master plan layout versus what was approved in 2003, but the general layout, the location of the lots, interconnectivity, both internal to the development and to the external, is essentially the same, except we do actually have another potential connection to the west to Kettner Road there under the Beltway. This is along Shallowford Road, and this is the Covington Place entrance onto Shallowford Road, and I'm calling attention to Covington Place because at the Planning Board public hearing, we did have opposition to the proposal from folks that lived in Covington Place, and it was generally centered around the connection from Covington Place into the subject property and the subject property into Covington Place. This is the Covington Place subdivision that was approved actually after the Brookberry plan. Covington Place was approved in 2004, 2005, and where the arrow is shown in green is where the proposed connection from Brookberry into the Covington Place subdivision was contemplated on the Brookberry plan, and whenever Covington Place came in for their development process, which was done under existing zoning, they had to show their connection to the future Brookberry Road. It just so happens that Brookberry is such a large development that Covington Place was essentially built out before they even got to this phase of Brookberry. But you'll notice that there are 4 intersections that you would have to navigate. So it's not a direct route, but somewhat of a circuitous route to get from the proposed modifications of the master plan out to Shallowford Road. The condition modifications that have been contemplated by or have been requested by the developer is to remove the cap on the number of front-loaded garages from both Land Bays 2 and Land Bays 3. Under the original proposal, there was a cap of 10%. You could have no more than 10% of the homes in those 2 land bays with front-loaded garages. There has been a change in development preference, and the petitioner is requesting to be able to do more front-loaded garages based on the desire of folks to have smaller lots, and then that necessitates front-loading those garages versus side-loading because you can't get the footprint of the house and the driveway to do a side load. The other request is in Land Bay 3. There was a cap of 300 units in Land Bay 3 under the original approval, and they're requesting for an increase of that cap to 380 units. I will say that on the illustrative master plan in front of you, however, they've only shown approximately 285 units. So they've asked for an increase in that cap in case there are other gains to be realized in the future based on, again, changes in preference, going to smaller lots, that type of thing. But the overall number of units for the overall project is still in keeping with the original proposal. Those other conditions that are there, there's a condition for a 40-foot wide greenway easement to be offered for dedication to the city of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County along Reynolds Creek between the proposed loop road and the proposed right-of-way of the Northern Beltway, and that would just be an extension of the greenway plan that the city and the county have adopted. And again, another greenway easement there, and I'm not going to read that. It's similar to the first request. Those are the revised conditions or the new conditions dealing with the Greenway easement. I did want to point out that we did want to make it clear that all other requirements of zoning docket F 1392 are carried forward except the ones that I've already mentioned, dealing with the front-loaded garages and the increase in the number of possible lots in Land Bay 3 from 300 to 380. In summary, the project remains consistent with the low-density residential land use recommended in the West Suburban Area Plan update. The increase in the number of homes should not impact the trip generation for this site. Staff has no concerns regarding the proposed changes to the conditions. And again, as I did allude to earlier, the street connection between Brookberry and Covington Place is a requirement of the UDO. The Covington connection actually was built to connect into the street shown on the Brookberry plan, which was approved first, but as a much larger project, took longer to construct to get to this point. Again, at their planning board meeting of September 9th, there were a number of speakers in opposition, but exclusively the opposition was to the connection between Covington Place and Brookberry Farms. Planning board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this request with the amended master plan and the amended conditions, and the site plan does meet UDO requirements. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. I know there is someone here in opposition. I believe the petitioner is here as well.
Okay, Chris, you did a great job. Chris Murphy of the Planning and Development Office in Forsyth County. It's time to ask if there are any questions for Mr. Murphy or comments about Brookberry, Covington, both historic in nature in this community. Okay, we don't have any questions. So
Well, I'm here if you do.
you did a good job. Just stand by. There'll probably be more questions. Okay, thank you very much. The public hearing on this particular item will have up to 15 minutes for folks to speak in favor of the request and up to 15 minutes for people who want to speak in opposition to the request. I will be keeping time. Try to limit your comments if you can to 3 minutes, and I will let you know if you have 1 minute left or 30 seconds left. It's important that we have this, but it'll be a full 30 minutes to give pros and cons to what Mr. Murphy has just described for us. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request? Sir, if you could give us your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Yes, my name is Daniel Dinsbury. I'm 1540 Silas Creek Parkway. I'm with the development team that's developing Brookberry. Just wanted to make ourselves available to you, to the board here. So, yeah, the reason for this change is just to respond to market conditions and the conditions that have changed. And so we've been very consistent and loyal to Brookberry to make sure we don't be offensive to any of our current residents, which is at 500 and something strong now. And we are sensitive to the Covington request, but that one's kind of out of our hands. But I'm here to answer any questions if anything does come up. So.
Any questions for this gentleman? So far, so good. Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the request? Seeing none, I will open the airwaves in this room for those who would like to speak in opposition to the request. Sir, if you'd come forward, just give us your name and address. You'll have a solid 3 minutes.
Do I keep my mask on, sir?
You can take it off, that's fine. We want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. May it please the board and the commissioners, my name is John Pichelle, and I live in Covington Place, and I'm here to speak in opposition to F-1608. I've lived in Covington Place since it was built. I think I was in the third house. I've been a past member of the board and the immediate past president, but I speak only for myself today. And my objection is very limited. We want the county to get all of the tax revenue they're going to get from all the more houses they're building just north of our neighborhood. We're not trying to interfere with any of that. It's good for the county, we understand. It's good for the taxes and good for everybody. What's not good is the connection between Brookberry Place and Covington Place. No one from Brookberry is here to advocate for that. The developer doesn't care. The only folks that do care are the folks in Covington Place, and they care for for important reasons. And remember, the ordinance that was cited in the proposal, its purpose is to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the residents that live in the jurisdiction. And so we come to you saying that this is not good for the general welfare or for the safety of the residents that are affected by this zoning request. And so I want to tell you a little bit about Covington Place. You all know better than I the chaos that is Meadowlark and Country Club and getting on that. It's a mess out there. Covington Place is nestled in a bowl of trees. You could see it on the picture. It's surrounded on all sides by trees. Piedmont didn't take them all down when they put the gas line in for Brookberry, which we are appreciative of. But you have this little island of peace among all the chaos of the traffic outside in this area. And it's important to know the streets. That's what's really at issue here. The streets are very narrow. They're 2.5 car, maybe 3 wide. 2 cars have to pull over when a car is parked. The neighbors have to let each other by. There are no sidewalks in the county portion of Covington Place. The front street is within the city and it has sidewalks, but the bulk of the neighborhood has no sidewalks.
You have 1 minute.
Yes, sir. It has no street lights, and people use those streets actively. We know all 100 houses in the neighborhood. Kids walk, they bike. We wait for the bus in those streets. And you're going to allow in this amendment, which I don't oppose, hundreds of new houses just north of us. At the hearing where I expressed my opposition, you're going to have, for the next couple of years, you're going to have trucks coming through. There's no possible way they're going to use any way into Brookberry but our neighborhood if they're coming off the highway. It was opined at the last meeting that there would be no cut through from Robin Hood to Country Club to get on 421 to avoid the traffic. There's no possible way that's not going to happen. So you're going to double at least or quadruple the traffic through Covington Place. It's not safe to do that. It will damage the neighborhood. And I'll point out, Your Honors, or the board, the last thing on page 4 or page 2 of the briefing materials. There's already precedent within this proposal to allow the developers not to build another connecting street. The Beauchamp Road connection is at the bottom of page 4 of the materials from the planning board. Apparently that is too close to a house, irrespective of the fact that this one goes right between two, but it would be too expensive to build a bridge or something. And so if the board has the authority to recommend that that street not be put through, we ask that this street not be put through either, and we ask that you amend the ordinance order, section 3, to add a proviso not permitting or requiring that connection.
You have
Thank
30
you all.
seconds.
That's all. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Mr. Pichel. Appreciate it very much. Do we have anyone else who would speak in opposition to the request? Please don't hesitate. Anyone to speak in opposition to the request? If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed. It's time to vote on this, commissioners, and any comments you'd like to make before we begin the process?
I maybe just have a question for Mr. Murphy. And
Yes, sir.
And the question really is, I'm assuming that probably the Covington Place, as it developed, that folks who bought residences there were aware that the plan with Brookberry, that particular street was going to be a throughway.
It's one of those things, I can't tell you what folks are or are not aware of, and it really depends on what folks, the diligence that they do whenever they're looking at things. But if you look at, I don't know how well you can see it, if you look at Hilly Creek Lane, and this is the plat that was recorded, and I don't know a date, but you see it's book 52, page 148, and I have a blow up. It says Stubb Street connection has been designated as a through street. That's on the recorded final plat. And we do that purposefully so folks, theoretically are under advisement that that road is not a cul-de-sac, that road would extend through. If you'll notice where you have kind of the two hammerheads, Blackbird Court and where Hidden Stream Drive goes kind of to the west, there's nothing there indicating that those are going to be through streets because they're not. They're permanent turnarounds, whereas in this case, you do have that note on the plat that this will eventually be a through street to another development. If I could just kind of mention the Beecham Road connection, that was specifically taken out because this is the actual ordinance language dealing with stub streets and street design. And it says, unless exempted below, stub streets shall be required on each side of a development to allow for future interconnectivity to adjacent tracts of land when they develop. And it has, the exceptions below. Stub streets shall be located in places where topography and other features on and off the site will be conducive to future street extensions. Stub streets should not be required on sides where terrain features or existing development would make a future connection prohibitive. The Beecham Road, I'm not sure if any of you have ever been out there, but it literally, I don't have a picture of it, but from Google Street View, it's two steel beams and wooden surface. I don't know if they're 2x4s, 4x6s, what they are, but essentially they are. It's not anything that could be connected. You could provide a stub there, but it would be cost prohibitive based on the amount of land that's left to ever construct a bridge across that creek that would have a return on investment. So again, that's why that connection went away. But again, that was a secondary connection that was shown on the original plan along with the one that was shown into the future Covington Place. So I just wanted to take that opportunity to explain why that one was done away with.
And just with that network of streets, I'm not super familiar with those, looking at it, is there a way, if that stubbed off, let's just say that street were closed, how would people get in and out of the extension of Brookberry Farm? I mean, what are the other ways that come out?
Yeah, the only way theoretically, if this connection isn't made, the only way to get into Brookberry from Shallowford Road would be to take Metal Arc and then go up to the two entrances into
and then go back around.
into Brookberry and then come back down. And conversely, if they're in there, the only way to get to points further to the west would be to go back up and come back around. And that's one of the reasons why we have the stub street provisions in the ordinance. And they've been in there probably 20 years. But if you look on the east side of Metal Arc, I don't want to say none, I don't want to be declarative, and there is limited interconnectivity in between those subdivisions, and there is no interconnectivity back across the creek to the east. So every one of those subdivisions have to get onto Metal Arc and either go to the north or to the south to get on Country Club / Stires Ferry or Robin Hood. Whereas on the west side, if this connection remains, you can go from Stires Ferry, from Shallowford to Robin Hood and not get on Metal Arc. But again, you would probably have to, just in that one segment of Covington, you'd have to make 4 turns, and that's not counting the turn out of Brookberry. So I would say you'd have to make 10 or 15 turns to get from Shallowford to Robin Hood, but you could do it.
I got it.
Further comments? Questions?
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Fleming Elamine.
Chris, during the public hearing, were there any concerns raised about the amount of extra traffic that the community would have to absorb?
About extra traffic, again, I think there were 7 or 8 speakers that spoke, including the gentleman that just did speak. And again, their concern was with the connection and their thought and that there will be traffic that would come through their neighborhood, use it as a cut through. But there were no concerns about the number of trips in and of itself of the development and Metal Arc and Stires Ferry. It was more just the fact that folks coming through Covington from Brookberry and going from Shallowford through Covington to Brookberry.
Additional comments? Questions? Chris, you covered it pretty well. Again, thank you very much. Commissioners, before we vote, do you have any comments or questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that zoning map amendment F1608, including site plan amendments and special use district, be approved on the basis of the following. The proposed site plan amendment as petitioned by Brookberry Farm LLC, Berkley von FEILITZSCH and HERIBERT von FEILITZSCH, for modifications to the illustrative site plan and conditions for development in an MUS two-phase zoning district is consistent with the recommendations of the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and reasonable or in the public best interest because, one, the subject property is a 211.46 acre, mostly undeveloped tract located west of Brookberry Farm Circle, east of Kettner Road, and south of Cedarmere Drive. The subject property is currently zoned MU-S and is surrounded by property zone MU-S, S, and RS9. The current conditions allow for the construction of 300 single-family homes in Land Bay 3 of the development, and the proposed site plan amendment would allow for the construction of 80 additional single-family homes in Land Bay 3 and would remove the limitation on the number of houses with front-facing garages. 3, the proposed changes should have limited impact on traffic and are similar uses to those in neighboring properties. And 4, the subject property is located in Growth Management Area 3, suburban neighborhoods, and the proposed use would be consistent with the West Suburban Area Plan update, which recommends low-density residential land use at this location.
Motion to approve made by Commissioner Don Martin. Do I hear a second? Second by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. Further comments before we vote? No? All in favor of the motion, rather than say aye, hold your right hand up, please. All opposed? Fleming Elamine is the lone opposition, and it passes unanimously. Thank you all very much. Our next item on the agenda at this point is to approve the minutes for October 21st. Do I hear a motion? Motion by Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now let's take about a 5-minute pause before we go further, because we're getting ready to go into the remainder of the agenda, and the remainder of the agenda has a lot to do with the public comment section. So we'll take 5 minutes. The 5-minute recess has come to a close. We're still in the meeting, the regular meeting, where we actually vote on items of interest to the people of Forsyth County. Might point out that we've had some conversation here. When I closed out the meeting for a recess, I made the statement of a public hearing, and I was referring to the public session, which will begin just seconds from now. But the other part of that equation is a lot of people thought that it would be directly after the recess to discuss what we refer to as the turkey shoot item, and that will come later in the agenda when we turn the meeting over to the county manager to handle it, as he does very well. But now, Madam Clerk, do you have telephone calls for the public session for those who would like to speak about problems, needs, and interests in Forsyth County?
Mr. Chairman, we have 10 speaker cards and 2 phone calls.
Whoa. Well, which would you prefer to take, the calls or the speaker cards?
Let's start with the calls first, and then we'll go to the speaker
All
cards.
right, go right ahead.
Thank you. You are now available. Thank you.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners Public Session Line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Melisha Woodbury. My address is 3022 North Glen Avenue, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27105.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, and definitely Chair Plyler. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon as an advocate for triad cultural art application to be ideally reconsidered based on any necessary adjustments. I would just like to briefly add that my support for triad cultural arts to initiate an African American Heritage Center of Winston-Salem is based on 3 primary ideas. One, it definitely aligns with the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education policy for African American history and multicultural infusion curriculum, which I think in a very seamless way connects to the vision and support of the county commissioners to help with our public school. I would also like to add that, of course, through the leadership of Vice Chair Martin, of course, this would not even be possible. It was up under his tenure that the community connected with the school district to provide for and initiate an infusion curriculum, and which also included, I would say, through the community, Reverend Mendez, Reverend Eversley, and of course, at the time, Dr. Willette Nash. I would also like to say that it also responds to the Kate B. Reynolds Community Impact Report for a community space that supports the intersection of race, class, gender, etc., to strengthen the understanding of our differences to live in a more harmonious community. And lastly, just in a very plain way, this is for our children. Ideally, it will extend multicultural learning opportunities through exciting experiential learning engagement. So thank you for this opportunity to, again, support the efforts of Triad Cultural Arts for an African American Heritage Center.
Well, thank you very much. Now we'll go our second telephone call, and we thank everyone in the Commissioners' meeting room, those who are waiting to speak.
You are
for
now
your
available.
patience.
Thank you.
I would also like to say that it also responds
Please
to the
mute
Kate
your
B. Reynolds
volume.
Community Impact Report for a community space
Yes.
that supports the intersection of
Will you please mute your volume?
I will.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners Public Session Line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
cut it up some.
We need the.
Sir, we can't hear you. When I said mute your volume, I meant on your device.
Okay, I apologize for that.
No,
I'm sorry.
it's okay. Please state your name
Okay.
and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Calvin Patterson. I live on Woodsong Lane in Winston-Salem, zip code 27106. Good afternoon, Chairman Plyler, Vice Chair Martin, Commissioners El-Amin, Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel, and Commissioner Wisenhunt, as well as Mr. Watts and the staff of Forsyth County. You do a great job. I am president of the Winston-Salem Black Chamber of Commerce. We are a 501c6 nonprofit organization formed in 2002. We have as a mission to help businesses succeed and be profitable. And even as our name implies, we are the Winston-Salem Black Chamber of Commerce, but anyone, any individual or business is welcome, as reflected by our membership, which includes the United Way as well as the Flywheel Foundation. Our programs focus on helping small to medium-sized African-American businesses specifically. We know that COVID-19 has impacted their businesses. It's impacted everyone, but certainly the smaller mom and pops types of businesses that we represent have been extensively impacted. We are seeking, with the funding that we're asking for, to build first our capacity. We are a totally volunteer organization and have been so since our inception. So we're looking to hire staff. We're looking to rent space near the downtown area and provide programming that involves training, providing technical assistance to the community, providing mentoring to young people who want to become entrepreneurs, and providing some forms of economic assistance for our members as well as the community at large. Our partners include the Winston-Salem S.G. Atkins Enterprise Center, Wake Forest University. We have an intern relationship with them, as well as with Flywheel. So we hope that you will consider and approve our application. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your help.
Mr. Chairman, we have one more caller.
One more, okay.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners Public Session Line. This session is for comments only and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Laura Lester, and I live in 27104. And I just have a comment for
Ma'am, I'm sorry
Joshua
to-
Swift.
Ma'am, I need you
Yes.
to state your address, please.
Oh, I'm in 27104,
No, your physical address.
Rockmont Court.
Will you please state your full address?
I live on Rockmont Court in Winston-Salem, 27104.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me speak. I just have a comment for Joshua Swift, and I just want to make sure that the clinics and the shot clinics that are going to be held for the children, that the parents are going to be able to see the ingredients of the shots and all of the adverse effects that can be possible, so that they can have a true informed consent for this shot. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, that takes care of the telephone calls, and they've all been of a different subject. Mrs. Sloop, you may continue with the entire studio audience at Government Center. And there are 10 of you out there. I can't wait to hear what you say.
Val Young, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Val Young, 610 Barbara Jane Avenue, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27101. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Val Young. I'm president of FCAE, and I have been public school educated. I got my teaching degree from Winston-Salem State University. I've taught 20 years at Ashley Elementary School, and I have lived on the east side of town for 50 years. So I'm invested in Forsyth County. I and FCAE are invested in this community. The pandemic has shone a light on the issues in our communities, and we at FCAE are in support of the grant proposal from Equity for Action for Equity. They have given us an action moving forward solution that we really need in our community. We can no longer place the blame on people or shake our heads and say, this is not an issue for me. But we as a community must take action and do whatever we can to save our most valuable resource, our children and our families. Action for Equity, with a large coalition of stakeholders, has proposed a comprehensive plan with tools, strategies, and resources to help heal and strengthen our community. We at FCAE employ the county commissioners to fund this grant that will provide mentoring programs, mental health, trauma resources, restorative justice, social and emotional education, parent empowerment, employment resources, violence interruption resources, and so much more. This proposal would finally move us from people who hopelessly live in Forsyth County to people who have taken action, to being a prototype for what can be done when a community comes together and makes it their mission to improve the lives of all individuals in their community. Funding this proposal will improve our community for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. Ms. Loop.
Yvonne Williams, please come forward and state your address for the record.
Yvonne Williams, 840 Duckview Court, Winston-Salem, 27106. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Yvonne Williams, and I am the president of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Retired School Personnel. I'm speaking as an individual. The recent rash of violence, guns being brought to schools, has prompted discussions of what our community can do to prevent these acts from happening. I taught the last 9 years of my active career as an educator at Parkland High School. I probably learned more in those 9 years as to how to communicate and help students than I had in the entire 26 years of my career. After 1 year, I learned at Parkland that yelling, suspension, expulsion, D1s, where you had a student removed from your class, that wasn't the way to solve the problem. There were deeper issues. And it was not the way to help these young men and women who were often involved in violence or disruptions, not only in school, but in their community. Talking one-on-one, showing these students that you care about them was the most successful too. For example, 1 year I had a student who was so disruptive. Finally, it was the last hurrah, and his minister actually called me and said, "May I come with you and talk with you about this young man?" He did, and we talked together, and he asked me to give this student one more chance, and I did. He explained to me how he would help them, and this student eventually graduated from Parkland High School. The saying that it takes a village is so true. The Action for Equity emphasizes that all members of a community and its resources, providing mentors, workshops, etc., should be used. I'm asking you today to support the funding of the Action for Equity grant proposal. Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, educators, students, their parents, churches, and our communities, we've all got to work together to help our students and our schools. The proposed Action for Equity grant will provide the resources and the funds necessary to accomplish the goal of helping these students. I ask you today, once again, Please know that this is what we're going to do. My group is willing to work and help all of you. Please support and vote to fund the Action for Equity grant proposal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Jacob McElhaney, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jacob McElhaney. I live at 3929 Ebert Road, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27127. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jacob McElhaney, and I'm a 7th grade teacher at Paisley Middle School, who's in support of the grant proposed by Action for Equity. Due to the pandemic, schools have been overwhelmed by students' negative behaviors as they lost many of the conditioned behaviors from previous years. There simply aren't enough scaffolds or people in place to properly integrate restorative justice into the buildings. We only have so many counselors and administrators, and they work extremely hard every day. Additionally, teachers are expected to interrupt any violence that happens so we can assure the safety of our other students. I'm here to give a few personal anecdotes of my experiences this year. The first one happened within the first few weeks of the school year. Due to gang recruitment incidents that happened outside the school, 2 of my students got into a fight inside my classroom. The instigator had been agitating a student in the neighborhood, and they had both brought the conflict into my classroom. The other student attacked the instigator, and I placed myself between them and stopped the attacker and forced the instigator into the hallway. Due to a simple lack of bodies, the violence continued, and a teacher was injured in the process, as one of the students continued to struggle as he was taken to the office. Due to this incident, lack of early intervention, and lack of healing, students have expressed interest in leaving the school, the neighborhood, and the district as a whole. A second incident occurred with the same instigator, a different second student, and another teacher had to get involved. She was restraining the student, and she was unable to contact the main office. I served as a violence intervention person that day, as I allowed the other teacher to leave the room. The second teacher was injured as a result of the fight. I have been present during a nasty fight during dismissal, though I was prioritizing keeping other students away and keeping them safe. I've had to restrain 2 other violent students this year, and videos have surfaced from other violent incidents and from conflicts across the district. A few of these incidents were gang-affiliated, and schools do not have enough resources to deal with escalating violent activities in schools, and early intervention can rarely happen due to the current conditions and lack of personnel. Violence interruption usually involves teachers and other students prior to administrators, counselors, or the SRO being able to respond. Healing can happen, but due to a lack of resources and a lack of separate setting, healing and restorative justice is difficult. In addition to the previously mentioned people, including but not limited to the SRO, counselors, and administrators, additional resources are needed on all sides in order to promote early intervention, violence interruption, and healing. Students need early intervention and healing afterward, and teachers need to be able to reclaim the ability to teach rather than simply putting out these sorts of fires. I'm asking you today to support the Action for Equity grant proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Excellent job.
William Fulton, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
William Fulton. Apparently he isn't. Here he comes. Good.
Greetings, County Commissioner and the board. My name is William Fulton. I am the owner of the Hugo Bar. I currently preside in the Enterprise Center. I came back to Winston-Salem strategically to start my business here in Winston-Salem so I can put on my back label from Winston-Salem. So I am in the Enterprise Center. I've been able to grow my business there, get agriculture certified. Now, from that point, my product is in 8 stores, 7 farmers markets. I am on Amazon and getting ready to go back on Walmart.com. I'm in favor of the expansion because I need more space, and I want to be able to support other entrepreneurs that I provide a service to at a business called The Greenhouse, where I provide 20 entrepreneurs a place to retail their products. We need more kitchen space for upcoming entrepreneurs, and the enterprise has a facility that's in the community and ready to help. So I'm in favor, and I hope you guys are in favor as well. All right. Thank you.
You said that very well, and I said it in 60 seconds as well.
Gwendolyn Moore, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Ms. Moore, it's good to have you with us.
Why, thank you. Hi, my name is Gwendolyn Moore. Hello, all of you commissioners, and thank you, Ms. McDaniel. My name is Gwendolyn Moore. I am the owner and baker of Mrs. G Gourmet Cheese Straws. I couldn't have started my business had it not been for the Enterprise Center. The Enterprise has allowed me the opportunity to grow and to flourish through creating my business plans, through acquiring grants. Right now, because of the Enterprise, I'm in 5 stores and I'm on 2 farms, and I'm on a winery. We need a grant to enlarge our kitchen. Our kitchen stays at 100% clean, and making stuff like cheese straws or doing what Mr. Fulton was doing, we need a clean kitchen and we need a larger kitchen because we're trying to grow. And because of the Enterprise Center, we are growing. So it would be a blessing if we could get the grant to help us to get to the next level of our program. Thank you so much.
You're an amazing person. You did it in less than 60 seconds.
I'm good like that.
Thank you. She's one of the reasons I enjoy this part of being a commissioner.
Demetrius Roll, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Good to be here, Board and Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of the Enterprise Center. My name is Demetrius Roll. I live at 787 Oxbow Lane, Kernersville, North Carolina. I won't be before you long, but the Atkins Center they gave me an opportunity when I did not have an opportunity. When everybody closed their doors to COVID, we stayed open, feeding the homeless and feeding our community on the south side. We fed over 50,000 meals. 50,000 meals. And if it had not been for them opening their doors and extending their hand out, a lot of people wouldn't have got fed. And there is a need for growth in this area. We give back to the community. We have community days. And so we just need the opportunity to growth and to build and expand more because there's a need for it. It's an opportunity for us as business owners and entrepreneurs to continue to grow and flourish in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we're down to about 5 or 4, aren't we, Mrs. Sloop?
We have 4.
Okay.
David Villada, please come forward,
Did
state
you
your
say
name and address.
David and Goliath?
No. No, Mr. Villada, please come forward.
Villada.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Used to say on The Price is Right, come on down.
Commissioners,
Yes, sir.
how y'all doing today?
Good.
Y'all seen me before plenty of times, and y'all know who I am, David Villada, 1411 Golson Avenue, founder and director of New Life, Nueva Vida, resident and citizen of Winston-Salem for about 15, 16 years. You guys know why I'm here. You know my purpose. You know what I do in the community, but I'm gonna refresh a little bit, just in case you guys forgot. In case you didn't know, about 500 feet over right now, you have a body on the highway with his guts all over. Part of the violence and the stuff that's going on in our city. 34 homicides in this city right now. The most you ever had in the most 25 years. That's not counting that none of those are credited to the Hispanic gangs, specifically on the south side, that we have put a preventive plan We've implemented and we've also mediated a peace treaty amongst all the Hispanic gangs, as I told you, mentioned it to you guys, and the city's becoming aware of it. But the tragic and the issues that are coming upon, there is a solution, and you guys have the plans, you guys have the money, the funding. But one of the biggest plans that we're offering is to help you guys through the Women's Gun Violence Coalition. As you guys heard from many teachers and stuff, there's a lot of situations going on in the schools, and that comes from the streets. From the streets, it carries over to the homes, and from the homes to these schools. And these babies don't deserve this type of life. I ask every single one of you guys to please put any personal issues aside. Understand where we're coming from and what's going on in our community, in our streets.
You have less than 1 minute.
The pain and the suffering that's going on. You guys know that the Cure Violence is going to be putting over a report very soon, and that's evidence-based. That's stuff that's working on in the communities. And there's a referral there, a specific clause that says that we do not work or associate with the law. And that's not a negative thing. Please don't take it as a bad thing. Understand that what we're doing is preventive work with high-risk individuals. There's no crime there. We're not in danger. We're not in harm. We're not afraid of being in those streets working with individuals who understand us and who we understand because we have cultural competency.
30 seconds.
You guys understand what's going on. If we do our job, then the law could be free to do their job to fight crime and solve crimes. We're not nothing against them. We're not taking away from their credit, everything they do. We just want to do our job and let them do theirs. And another thing is that if you guys don't really understand how much it costs for this program, maybe you guys can put a value in the pain and suffering of Mrs. Rio Navarrete when she lost her 5-year-old. Or Mrs. Davina Lopez when she lost her 15-year-old last year due to gun violence. Mrs. Mendoza, who lost her son 6 years ago to a 12-year-old who murdered him. Or Mrs. Figueroa, who lost her daughter, a dear friend of mine, a single mother, shot 3 times in the face and 4 times in the back and thrown on the side of the road just last December 7th. And Ms.
You're out of
McDaniel, the
time.
pain that you suffered when you lost your child.
Mhm.
There's no money that can take away that pain, that suffering that these families go home to every day and feel. I ask every single one of you, and I plead to help us solve the crime in our streets. Take away these pains from the loving mothers and families. It's not your money. It's the federal government money. It's ours. Put it where it belongs and let us help. I've asked you before, let us be your assembly line. We'll work in the streets and we'll give you a finished product. Please understand that those $5 million that we're asking for the next 3 years are very, very important in this city. Thank you. God bless every single one of you guys.
Thank you very much, and we're glad you came. Mrs. Sloop.
Mr. Peterson, please come forward, state your full name and address for the record.
I'm eager, because I don't hear but hope. My name is Martinez Peterson. I'm a founder of Enough is Enough, 611 West 13th Street. And I just want to voice my opinion on what is being affected, because I was affected by these situations. I came through these situations, and who the best to tell you from a person who's been through these situations? You understand? I can't go in the hospital and tell a doctor who's been doing hard work all along, I know what to do and I don't know what to do. So, you know what I'm saying? A lot of our situations that I'm speaking for the community, because I'm in the community. And a lot of our situations that we're enduring right now, it can be prevented. You know what I'm saying? But we can't have these people stepping up this way, this person talking this way, put Band-Aids on this situation. This is a real soil. This is a real soil. And when we as a community continue to hear these promises, keep hearing this, and don't nothing never come into fruition. So who's the best to be able to do this situation but those that's in the midst of it? So I'm saying, like, for everything I done heard here, it's been a blessing because that's what the community want to hear. A lot of stuff that we hear here is like, you know, it's another language, man. We need to know the truth. So when we hear and speak the truth, I go tell them the truth. And we really need to know, how can we help ourselves? What is it we can do to help ourselves? I mean, everybody else done tried it. Everybody done had their master plan. What about us in the community? Let us teach and show what needs to be done because we've been there. We know what it takes. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much, sir. Mrs. Sloop.
Joy Williams, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Pretty name, Joy. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Joy Williams, 5059 Butterfield Drive. Good afternoon. So I founded and run a nonprofit called Hope to Thrive. And one of the areas that we work on is trauma. And the hope in Hope to Thrive is to immediately address the needs that people have, whether it's food, housing, shelter. The two part is based on relationships. The thrive part is about dreaming again and being able to have the resources to be able to dream and realize your dreams. I am not here on behalf of Hope to Thrive, however. I am here on behalf of so many organizations that are in the community that have spoken to you about trauma. Now, one of the areas that I have done a lot of research in, I have a public health background, is trauma. And there are 10 indicators of extreme trauma. They include sexual, emotional, and physical abuse, mental and emotional neglect, and household dysfunction that includes mental illness, incarceration of a caregiver, substance use or abuse, domestic violence, and divorce and separation. You yourselves may have experienced one of these, what we call adverse childhood experiences in the public health field. What I want to really lift up is the amount of trauma, not just those 10 experiences, but so many others like violence that affect an individual and their ability to self-regulate, which could show up as dysregulation and violence, as temper, as so many other things. I sang before you, and while I know that you're not allowed to participate, singing is one of the ways that can really help regulate the body.
You have 1 minute.
And so can water. If you were to imagine yourselves not just drinking water for your health and promoting it for the community, but imagine yourselves with these ARPA funds or any other type of regulation or law that you have as water for the community and how much life it can bring. Please do so. Because the way that we address what so many have spoken before you is as a unit that comes together like particles in a sea or a vast ocean that can begin to not only water the animals that live within it, within our communities, but those that begin to float on it. So I invite you to really think about not just yes or no to projects, but how can we come together and create a process that will bring life and water to all of us. Thank you.
Beautiful presentation. Mrs. Sloop.
Mr. Chairman, our last speaker is Shireen Gomar. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Walking lively.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shireen Goma. And I am the founder of Delicious by Shireen. It's a Mediterranean, authentic Middle Eastern cuisine. We are helping and supporting refugee women in our community. Because of our work, we work with 10 refugee women. They earn money, they work and share their culture through food with our community and work and earn money to provide for their families. We are 5 years now in business, and we are expanding, we are growing, we are supporting, give back to our community. And because of our work at Shared Use Kitchen, we were able to give back to our community. We do provide meals for Bethesda Center once a month. We do Meals on Wheels. We do provide some meals to Ronald McDonald's House. We try to give back to our community because of our work in the kitchen. We were able to do so, and we ask you to consider like giving us the grant to the Shared Use Kitchen, so more small businesses and entrepreneurs can come and start their business and grow it, and we can expand our family, and we will be able to provide more meals to our community, to shelters, to beloved community, everyone in the family of the community. And we ask you to consider that, and we thank you so much for your time, and thank you.
You haven't stopped smiling since you came up here. You did a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shireen, real quick question, so that I can understand, make sure that I'm clear, that you're here to advocate for the Enterprise Center today?
Yes.
The center, the kitchen?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
thank
because
you.
Because this is, I am working from the kitchen, and without the kitchen, I wasn't be able to support more refugee women, and we start getting more refugee from all over, for all the country around us, and we hope that we will be able to support more families and more women through cooking and sharing the love of food.
Okay, thank you. I understand now. Thank you.
I hope you come back, at least come one more time.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Ms. Shireen.
Yes, sir. Ms. Shireen, Fleming Elamine, one of our fine commissioners, can't resist it. He's got to talk to you again.
I just want you to feel welcome in this chamber, so assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, brother. Thank you.
Richard Linville, do you have
Have a great
anything?
day.
Is there anything you'd like to say? Not now. Okay. I think that covers it, right? Well, thank you all for coming, and keep us informed. You don't have to have times to speak, but we want to hear from you, and if you haven't said what you want to say, and we've run out of time, then we encourage you to get in touch with us. Here's a man he just wanted to see what one of those looks like. And I'll turn the meeting over to our county manager, Dudley Watts.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We do have some business items for consideration at the meeting this afternoon. We have reviewed these in briefing sessions. We do have one added item that I mentioned last week around the acquisition of vehicles from an emergency services perspective, so we did add that, but I'll go ahead and dive into the agenda. Item 3 is an amendment to the 2020 Housing Grant Projects Ordinance. It will appropriate $155,000 in essential SFR program money to add to the current budget that was originally adopted.
Questions? Comments? Move approval. Motion to approve by Commissioner Martin.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
I hate all those folks just left, because item 4 is the resolution authorizing the execution of the necessary documents to provide up to $300,000 to S.G. Atkins Community Development Corporation if it is awarded a U.S. Economic Development Administration grant application to expand a shared use kitchen facilities at the Enterprise Center. This would add 4,000 additional square feet to the current roughly 1,000 square foot facility there. It does leverage $1 million in EDA funding.
Motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
Move to approve.
Second by Commissioner
sorry.
Tanya McDaniel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
All right, agenda item 5. Agenda item 5 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a FY 2021 Historic Preservation Grant for the rehabilitation of Kerner's Folly Summer Kitchen. You got the associated budget ordinance resolution accepting the authorization of the donation and then the amendment to the FY 2021 budget. This will essentially, the county is going to take the role as a certified local government, as a pass-through agent for these dollars. There is a $20,000 state grant and then a $20,000 raised by the Kerner's Folly group.
Motion?
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Whizenhunt.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations to Kerner's Folly.
All right. Agenda item 6 is a resolution accepting the donation of a Savoia Marchetti S-56 aircraft from Minolta House Incorporated and authorizing payment of transportation costs. This would allow the airport to fund the $10,000 in the transportation cost, and this will be a significant feature in the new terminal upgrade.
That's a big deal. Motion? Motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Second.
Second by Commissioners Tanya McDaniel and Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, agenda item 7 is a resolution ratifying and authorizing the execution of an amendment to the interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education for the provision of school resource officer deputy services. You got the associated budget ordinance amendment. This will provide for 5 additional SROs from January through June of this year in the amount of $212,281. It is funded by the schools, so it'll show us a revenue coming in from schools and then the expenditure in the Sheriff's Department budget.
Motion. Motion to approve by Commissioners Whizenhunt and Tanya McDaniel. Second
Second.
by Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Agenda item 8 is a resolution approving the purchase of replacement computer equipment. This will be through state contract in an amount not to exceed $147,883.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richard Linville. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 9 is a resolution authorizing the use of a fuel credit card program for the purchase of gasoline, diesel, and other designated motor fuels at stations with extensive accessibility. It is through the state contract. WEX Incorporated is the vendor, amount not to exceed $1.5 million.
Motion.
Approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Don Martin.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gloria Whizenhunt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Agenda item 10 is a resolution authorizing publication of an offer to purchase county-owned real property by negotiated offer advertisement upset bid procedure. It's 3554 Clemmons Road, which is the old library site. The offer is for $715,000, and it would be subject to upset bid. And I'm going to look to Kirby that we received the deposit today. So
Motion.
Approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Whizenhunt.
Second.
Second by Commissioners Falwell, Commissioner Don Martin, and Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, agenda item 11 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and Partners Health Management for lease of county-owned property at 650 North Highland Avenue. That is really a transfer from the leasehold that was there with Cardinal to Partners.
Have a
Motion to
motion?
approve.
Motion to approve by Fleming Elamine.
Second.
Second by Commissioners Martin and McDaniel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 12 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and Gassy Tees LLC doing business as Golf Soft for lease of county-owned property at Tanglewood Park at 4061 Clemmons Road.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Second.
Second by Commissioners Martin and Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, item 13, you got a resolution approving refunds with a tax assessed from collected amount of $1,128.49.
Move
Motion.
approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Gloria Whizenhunt. Second by Commissioner Ted Kaplan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I think you can take item 14 through 19 together. They are reports. You got the liquidity services operations sold asset report from the GovDeals auction. You got the July, August, September 2021 appropriations transfer reports. You've got the August 2021 human resources report and the tax assessor collector's refund under $100.
Motion on 14 through 19.
Move to receive the reports.
Motion to receive the reports by Commissioner Richard Linville.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You've got several added items. Item 20 was carried over. It is an ordinance amendment proposed by Edward Nichols modifying sections 5.4.2E and 11.2 of the Unified Development Ordinances pertaining to the temporary use turkey shoot UDO CC 13. Unless you need Chris to brief it again, you've heard it a lot.
Discussion?
There was an update in some of the effective language of that. I don't know whether David is here to speak on that.
Okay. Yeah, I believe you should. If there were changes, please provide the board an update.
Chairman, members of the board, try and pop through steps to pull up my show here.
Speak just a little louder. Here comes Ashley Sloop. She can solve
Almost
anything.
Date. And just to do a brief update, for the turkey shoot temporary permit text amendment, the proposed changes primarily relate to the minimum site size, the distance from the firing point to the property lines, and the duration of the permit. The planning board held its virtual public hearing in August, and after amending the proposed ordinance to increase the duration of the permit, voted unanimously to recommend approval of the amendment. At your October 7th commission meeting, staff was asked to reach out to the stakeholders to see if any compromise could be reached. The Walkertown Civic Club does not have any concerns with the amendment as proposed. The petitioner offered some possible changes, some of which staff has incorporated into a revised ordinance, and the primary opponent spoke with staff but has not offered comment on the petitioner's proposed changes. So the change is in section 3. That's the last section of a text amendment. It always generally states this ordinance shall become effective upon adoption. The language that was added to that, offered up in part by the applicant, goes on to read, however, until and no later than January 1st, 2023, any property that had a turkey shoot permit in effect as of January 1st, 2021, may continue to operate a turkey shoot with up to 3 60-day permits per year under the turkey shoot ordinance in effect as of January 1st, 2021, with a further restriction for such properties that the hours of operation and firearms discharge are limited to between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. on any day for which there is a valid turkey shoot permit. So that is the change that was proposed, and I'll try and answer any questions you may have.
Questions, comments?
I guess the only comment I would make is that I guess I had in my head originally in our discussion that this would have actually sort of made our ordinance regarding the discharge of firearms, which is 300 feet from a dwelling, it would kind of be consistent since this had like a 20-foot, the original ordinance had a very, very small distance. I realize that the way this is written is actually regarding the property line versus the dwelling, which is a difference, but I did speak with our attorney during just a recent break on that clarification, and I must admit there are kind of two different things. Discharging a firearm, you have a dwelling in place, and that's the danger side, and the dwelling's there. A turkey shoot issue could be regarding a piece of property that had no home yet, and then somebody builds a home somewhere on it or moves into it, and it's a lot easier to both measure and to deal with that from the actual property line. So I guess I'm probably fine with the fact that's a little bit different. It's still a 300 feet is apart. While it's a technicality, I'm okay with that, thinking through it. So I'm actually good with that, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this revised ordinance, CC 13.
Additional questions, comments? Well, he said he was prepared to make the motion. Are you now?
I'll make the motion and get a second. We have more
Okay,
discussion.
the motion's been made to accept the ordinance, second by Ted Kaplan. Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you a question, please? Either of you. Other than Mr. Nichols, how many complaints have you had in Forsyth County on turkey shoots?
None that I'm aware of.
Here he comes.
In regards to other turkey shoots, we haven't had no other complaints, but with this one, it was Ed Nichols, and I believe it was a few other neighbors, but we haven't had any other complaints from any other turkey shoots.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
And it's my understanding that Mr. Sales does not intend to have any more turkey shoots. So I guess Mr. Nichols' complaint has been heard and taken care of. So therefore, I'll be voting against the motion.
All right, are we all ready to vote? All in favor of Commissioner Martin's motion, raise your hands, please. All opposed? 2, Fleming Elamine and Gloria Wisenhunt vote in opposition, so the motion passes. Thank you. All righty.
The other two items that we have, item 21 and 22, both deal with acquisition of vehicles for emergency services. Who's going to brief these? All right, Darren, you drew the short straw, so come on up. And I will tell you, Darren, he's been with, how many months since you've been back? 6 months, 8 months?
About the same number of times I've been here, I think.
Right, I know. I think
7 months.
7 months. So, and Darren has tackled lots of issues and really gotten up to speed. Even, he'd had a lot of service with the county anyway, but I think purchasing vehicles was not one of those, and so he has moved fairly quickly. And we bring this to you really out of concern around some supply chain issues. We normally would have let this flow through the normal set of meetings, and we had been underway with a lot of things. We actually had out the purchase for remounts and the bids for remounts that we normally do and normally bring back to you, as we've been talking with vendors and competing with other jurisdictions around vehicle replacements. We felt really some pressures that may not be, the worst may not be seen until maybe next spring. So anyway, we wanted to go ahead and bring these to you to get these expedited so we could get these ordered. Item 21 is a resolution awarding and authorizing execution of a contract for the purchase of a new cab and chassis units with the remount of ambulance bodies. And that's the remount contract that we normally bring to you. The second one is a vehicle that we found that we can purchase under the sheriff's purchasing arrangement that's made statewide for a new vehicle. So I'll turn it over to just review both of these, if you will.
And actually, I'd like to share something with you before I ask you for anything, and that's some good news. I'm sure all of you are aware that for the past 4 weeks that we've had some FEMA ambulances here in Forsyth County, 3 ambulances with crews. We were notified yesterday that not only will that be extended another 2 weeks, but we're actually getting another one. So we're going to have 4.
Good.
So I think the rest of the states realize just how busy we are. So that's a good thing. The other thing I would like to share, and it really directly relates to this, is in the past month, we've added 7 providers, employees, and Monday we have a group of 12 starting, and we're already hiring for our December group. So I think I have something to put them in.
And there's a lot
That's a
of
good problem to have, the situation that we've been in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people to think. We've been working in a work group on that with the community college, with HR, with PTRC, probably somebody I'm missing, but kind of all hands on deck. We've streamlined some processes, and in this employment environment, you really have to do those sorts of things. And appreciate, and Darren really jumped on this first thing, so thank you, Darren. Appreciate it.
And as Manager Watts mentioned with the remount contract, this is our normal process. The reason that we're trying to expedite it in this case is that the awarded vendor does have in possession 1 chassis right now, and he's got 1 that should be arriving in the next couple of weeks, and we don't want him to slip away because we really don't know after that. He's got a lot on order, but the reality is he has received 2 VIN numbers, which means he's actually going to get those trucks. And so we can't afford to let somebody else slip in there and get them. So that's why we really want to move forward on this, on the remount portion of this. And we have 2 units, 1 definite, maybe 2 that we can send out, 1 that's already deadline that we can send out and get that process started immediately.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about the bids that came in on the remounts? A pretty big spread between them, and then also on the
bids were put out through the City County Purchasing. We did have 2 responsive bids that came back, 1 from Atlantic Emergency Solutions, 1 through Northwestern Emergency Vehicles. The Northwestern Emergency Vehicles was significantly about $70,000 cheaper. They both meet the same specifications, the same equipment, the same certifications, which is important.
Okay.
That's right. Commissioner Kaplan has moved approval. Commissioner Martin has seconded the motion. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? You can go back and just have a good time. You got exactly what you came for. Thanks.
120 days at least to get them. But,
That's right.
And I'm going to make sure that was for items 21 and 22. Items 22 is the new vehicle that's...
A motion from Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
I'll second, but I do have a question.
A question from Commissioner Martin on this.
And the question is on the first one, the replacement parts are with Northwest emergency vehicles. I take it they don't provide full ambulances, is that correct? So,
They do.
Because the next one is actually going back to the other vendor
Correct.
with Atlantic.
So what the difference here is we have not put out our bid, our spec bid for completed ambulances. That will be coming in the next few weeks. What we did because of the supply chain shortage is we've reached out to basically every vendor representing all manufacturers that we could find and said, what do you have in stock? And of the types, of similar type, size, and configuration to what we use, we were only able to locate one ambulance. That was through Atlantic, and they were able to price that through the North Carolina Sheriff's Association Vehicle Procurement Program, which give us a very good price on it. It is not exactly to our normal spec, but between myself and Fleet and our staff, we looked at it, and it was some very minor things that was different with it. I mean, really to the untrained eye, it would not even be noticeable. And so we elected that was sufficient, and it was kind of the bird in hand theory. This is one that we can get a hold of for a very good price. We figure we better move on it because we don't know. Here again, beyond the two units that we know is coming in, we don't know, one, who's going to get that spec bid in the future, and two, if they're going to have the chassis to provide.
And I think what we expect when we get bids in is when we start seeing bid and delivery time, that's where we're going to get, it's one thing for somebody to say, yeah, here's our quote, and it's a good number. It's another one to say you can't get one for 12 months. And that's really where we are, because it'll be interesting to see what availability is. I called around without Darren knowing, just because I wanted to see what I could find. And my question was, if I order an ambulance today, when can I get it? And the answer I got from two vendors was December of 2022.
Wow.
Okay. Any further comments? Thanks.
Thank you.
Glad you were here.
I think we need to vote.
Yep. Need to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's one thing we didn't do, right? All in favor of the repeat the motion. Ted?
Items 21 and 22, move approval.
Second by Commissioner Martin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it for the formal meeting. We have briefing and closed session.
Now, for those who are here and those watching on Channel 13, we've got a full month of briefing to take place here in just a few minutes. I think, why don't we take about a 5-minute break and come right back to this? We have a motion from Commissioner Kaplan to adjourn right now, second by Commissioner Richard Linville. And we will take a 5-minute break and come back for another briefing for the December meeting.
Chair has volume.
Oh, good. The reason we want volume on this particular thing is we're going to start this meeting in 15 seconds. So if you're going to have a part in it, now is the time to get ready. Welcome to the regular briefing session of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. We're briefing today for the December 2nd meeting. Seems like a long way off, but it'll be on us in no time. I'll turn the meeting over to our county manager, Dudley Watts.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it is a strange month from a meeting schedule because between the Veterans holiday next Thursday and then Thanksgiving, the way our schedule this month looks is 2 weeks from today, on the 18th, we'll have a second briefing, and it'll probably, I already know there's right much as far as discussion matters on that agenda. Then another 2 weeks from that, because we'll take the break the next week for Thanksgiving, we'll be back here on December 2nd. So that's what the schedule looks like, and that actually takes us to the first meeting in December, which, as you know, according to state requirements, we actually have an organizational meeting at that meeting every year. And so what you've got on your agenda here are the first 7 items are really what we had normally done. We used to do it in a separate meeting, is you'd have all the organizational items moving forward into that the new business year, which is also a calendar year of the county commissioners. And so you've got the chairman's year in review, transfer of pending business to the successor board, election chair and vice chair. We always do the bonds at that meeting. We actually formally approve the meeting schedule and then commissioner comments. There is one item that's not on there that Commissioner Martin had actually mentioned. I don't know if you want to mention it. There was some discussion in previous briefing sessions around sort of formalizing the board's protocols in terms of meetings. And so in conversations with Commissioner Martin, if you wanted to consider such a item, you could consider it there. And I think Commissioner Martin and I talked about maybe presenting something at the November 18th briefing that would meet that. So,
Yeah, no, that's good. And if I can finish what I was working on, that'd be great. I think I can. That's
Yeah.
motivation to get it done by the 18th.
Right. Well, I know that you've done some work, and we've actually sent out the samples of what Wake County, some other counties do. Some, we just operated in a little less formal fashion with this board. I do think when we wrote down our informal rules, that actually helped with business some, because it was there on paper and everybody paid attention to it, and then it was just in writing. So it was certainly helpful from my perspective.
Could I ask, if we're talking about procedures and whatnot and what other counties do, I think across North Carolina, the organizational meeting is held the first Monday in December. Is that not?
You are right. And I'll
I
turn
thought
it over
it
to
was
Gordon,
too.
yeah.
It's, the statute requires that on even years. On odd years, such as 2021, it can be held at the first regularly scheduled meeting in December.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess the reason I was looking at that is that I have a NACO board meeting, and I'll be out of town, and I'll be back for that Monday. So I was just hoping we could do it on Monday rather than on Thursday. But that's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
That's up to the board as to when you schedule that. It doesn't have to be at the first regularly scheduled meeting, but it can be.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right, so that is the organizational part of that meeting. The other items, we'll just go ahead and dive into. Item 8 is a public hearing on an ordinance amending chapters 5 and 11 of the Unified Development Ordinances to revise use-specific standards for storage services, retail, and definitions. And Tiffany White with Planning and Development will review.
Questions?
Not a one. She's got to review it first.
Okay, I think I did that right. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. I am here to present on UDO-CC 11, which is a request from Planning and Development Services staff to amend sections 5 and 11 of the UDO to revise use standards for storage services retail. Over the past few years, planning staff has seen an increase in requests for self-storage buildings, especially those that have internal corridor access. Internal access facilities have become the dominant self-storage model in many communities, and many are located near neighborhoods. As part of its review of these facilities, the Planning Board has often recommended design modifications to help these projects better fit in with the character of those surrounding neighborhoods. The Planning Board asked staff to develop some basic ordinance standards for storage facilities in order to better reflect the expectations for such projects and reduce the negotiation required for individual projects. Based on research and best practices, staff is proposing different standards for external access and internal access storage facilities, which I'll explain in just a minute. These amended standards will not affect existing storage services retail buildings, but will only apply to new development moving forward. So external access storage, external access buildings are kind of the traditional self-storage buildings that are accessed from the exterior via the roll-up doors where you drive up and unload your items. Outdoor storage for properties such as RV and boats is allowed with these facilities, but in the HB and GB zoning districts, we are recommending screening in order to limit the impacts, the visual impacts of that external storage. Most of the standards we're proposing are for those internal access storage facilities buildings. Again, these are the units that are accessed from interior doors and corridors. Exterior storage of boats and RVs is not allowed with this use because, again, these are typically located closer to neighborhoods and in community centers where it would not be an appropriate use. We are recommending specifying siding materials like stone and brick and architectural detailing. We are recommending windows or transparency along the public-facing facades, and that those facades be articulated in some way in order to avoid long, uninterrupted walls and to approve that compatibility with the neighborhoods. Again, these are tending to show up in activity centers or in smaller commercial areas where there's sidewalks, and having those long, interrupted walls can impact the visual look and accessibility of those types of buildings. In addition, the amendment proposes allowing internal access storage and expanding the allowing of this use into GO and LB and MRBS zoning, giving it similar impacts to other uses allowed in those districts. Since these types of storage facilities tend to look more like office buildings or other types of office or business uses, we thought expanding them into these districts would be appropriate. Internal access storage in the PB and LB districts would be allowed only with a special use permit from the elected body and would require a mix of non-residential uses along the street level right-of-way. Again, the PB and LB districts tend to be these more pedestrian-oriented districts, so allowing for that mix of uses would activate the streetscape and make them more pedestrian-friendly. Staff believes the proposed revisions to storage services retail standards will provide clarity in the project review process and reduce the need for the design of such projects to be negotiated on an individual basis. The proposed standards for internal access buildings, including building materials, will enhance the compatibility of these projects with surrounding businesses and neighborhoods. The Planning Board recommended approval of UDO CC 11 with an 8-to-1 vote at their June 2021 work session, and City Council unanimously approved UDO CC 11 at their October 4th meeting. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item 9 is a public hearing on a zoning petition of Southwest Land Holdings LLC from GI and RS20 to GIS. There's a whole bunch of uses there I'm not going to read. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Murphy.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon again, Chairman, County Commissioners. This is a petition of Southeast Land Holdings LLC to rezone a almost 30-acre site located on the northeast side of Renolda Road across from Hoosier Drive. And the request is for special use rezoning from GIS and RS20 to GIS. This is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area Plan map. It is shown within the future growth area there on the north side of Renolda Road, just outside of Bethania. This is the subject property shown in yellow. You'll notice that a large portion of the site is already zoned GIS. The area within the red line, that is the zoning, the current zoning. So everything within that area is already zoned GIS, and they're asking to rezone the balance of the area shown in yellow outside of the red line also to GIS. This is the same the subject property shown on the countywide aerial photo. This is the location of 67 Motors, which is an auto salvage business. And they're looking to do, to continue to operate that, but also actually, ironically enough, do some externally accessed storage service retail buildings. This is the subject property shown from Renolda Road. This is the intersection of Renolda Road and Hoosier Drive. This is looking across Renolda Road. The subject property would be to the right. This is the subject property viewed kind of looking back towards town. This is the subject property itself. And this is looking southeast on Renolda Road. Site is on the left. This is the subject property shown for the North Suburban Area Plan Update, Small Area Plan, and it does recommend the subject property be zoned industrial. This is the site plan. If you'll notice, again, they are bringing in the entire site and rezoning it GIS, but the area that is under the consideration for development here, primarily, and when looking at the site plan, is the area on the western portion of the site, and you'll see that they are proposing a number of externally accessed storage service retail buildings within the footprint of the property. These are what the building elevations would look like. The text amendment that you were considering earlier would not have any impact on this project. Since these are externally accessed, we don't really have a lot of design considerations for those, recognizing that they are more industrial in nature. That text amendment generally is more concerned about when we have the multi-story type office type buildings and making sure we have adequate design for that. So that text amendment won't have much of an impact on this, and even if it did, since that would be submitted, if the commissioners do decide to adopt this, they would have the choice to use the old regulations or the new regulations under the provisions of the general statute. But again, this won't have any impact on this project. In summary, the majority of the site is currently already zoned GIS. The area plan does recommend industrial land use for the subject property. The use of storage services retail typically generates limited trips. The request includes a broad list of intent uses which may have a greater off-site impacts, but changing to a new use would more than likely require a site plan amendment that would come back before this board. With that, this item was heard at the October 14th, 2021 public hearing by the Planning Board. There were no speakers in opposition, and the Planning Board recommended approval of this request 8-1, and the site plan does meet UDO requirements. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions? Comments?
That site is very near the proposed bypass interchange?
It is. It is the interchange for the Beltway is located east of this property, but it does not impact the subject property. But the interchange is located on Renolda back towards town, just a little bit to the east.
Right. I was just thinking, and because that, and has that intersection been all reviewed and got plans for sort of what's
I hate to hazard a guess. I know that basically the eastern leg moved in front of the western leg. I know there are some design.
I meant from our part, not the DOT part. I mean, from the plan.
We've looked at, NCDOT looked at the site plan as far as any impacts that this would have, and any impacts that they have conditions of approval related to it if there were anything, and they would be handled during the driveway permit.
Okay, I'm good.
Additional comments?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman. Chris, this is really not related to this request.
Okay.
But I had two community people that asked me about two developments. There seems to be one way in and one way out with a substantial number of homes in that development. And I thought we had an ordinance to govern that we'd have more than one way in, one way out. And I'll be very specific. One development runs off Oak Summit, not far from Royal Hall Road. It's called Summit 2. They have 80 homes already in there, and they're about to build 8 additional homes. And I went by there just to make sure the information I received was accurate. There's only one way in there and one way out. The other one runs off of Novak Street. And they built 125 houses on that new development off of Novak, which is in the Old Country Club Annex community. There's one way in and one way out. So you can imagine what kind of problems that would create. So I want just to get you to check for me to see if we have any governing ordinances on how many entrances and exits there should be when a development comes before you.
I can.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I'll write it down.
Okay.
Well, I know one of them's on Oak Summit. Where was the other one?
The other one's off of Novak Street.
Novak.
It's
Okay.
in the Old Country Club Annex community, which
Okay.
runs off Whittier Road.
Okay.
And that's development. Thank you.
Additional comments? Okay,
All right. Well, Chris is going to stay at the podium because item
Yeah.
10 is a public hearing on the zoning petition of Michelle Goodson and Ronnie Goodson from GI and RM8 to GI. Turn it over to Chris.
Thank you. Yes, this is a 2.28 acre piece of property on the west side of Dillon Farm Road, southeast of New Walkertown Road, and this is a request to rezone property from GI and RM8 to GI. So this is a general use request. Here is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area map. It is located within the Suburban Neighborhoods Growth Management Area there on the southeast side of New Walkertown Road. This is the location map, subject property shown in yellow. You'll see a portion of the site is already zoned GI. They're rezoning the RM8 portion as well. And that is a former daycare building out there on Dillon Farm Road that is no longer in use. Here is the subject property highlighted in yellow on the county's aerial photography. And you'll see that there is an industrial use on a vast majority of the property surrounding this. And again, they are requesting to rezone this to from RM8 and GI to GI. This is looking north on Dillon Farm Road. This is looking south on Dillon Farm Road. The site is there to the right. That is the former daycare building there. That's part of this rezoning request. And again, keep in mind it is general use. This is looking at the adjacent property to the south, which is residential, and this is not part of the request. And this is looking north on Dillon Farm Road. The site is to the west, which would be to the left. Again, this is the area plan map. This is in the Walkertown area plan update, which was adopted in 2014. You'll see that there is, it shows a majority of the property recognizing the existing GI zoning that's out there. And because at the time the area plan was being done, there was a daycare operating there with institutional use. It did not recommend changing that, but staff believes that since the daycare is no longer in operation and the property is being marketed and no one has stepped forward to put another daycare in there, that rezoning this piece of property to GI would be consistent with its surroundings and therefore in compliance with the area plan. In summary, the request is expanding existing industrial zoning in the county and increases opportunity for developing such uses. This request will revitalize an underutilized industrial site as recommended in the Walkertown area plan. Legacy 2030 does recognize the scarcity of industrial zone properties in Forsyth County and recommends redevelopment of existing sites where possible. This item, again, was heard by the Planning Board at their October 14th public hearing. There were no speakers in opposition, and the Planning Board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of this request to the Commissioners. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. All right, item 11 is approval of the minutes for the meeting of November 4th, 2021. You got 4 budget finance items. Item 12 is an amendment to the 2020 Schools Capital Maintenance Capital Projects Ordinance. Adam Fernbach with Finance is going to review.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools are requesting $1.735 million for the 2020 Schools Capital Maintenance Capital Project Ordinance from the General Fund. This request is for capital fund outlays at various schools. Proposed projects that will be funded are installing and relocating modular classroom buildings at schools needing major expansion at a cost of about $900,000, relocating mobile classrooms at a cost of about $119,000, repairs to existing buildings, mobiles, and modulars at $500,000, and $216,000 for high school athletic funds. If there are any questions, I can answer some of it, and Darrell Walker's here.
Questions, comments?
The only question I had was whether the mobile classrooms were, I understand the moving them part, I was just curious if it includes buying new ones.
No.
No, okay, good. Got it, relocation only, got it.
Additional questions?
The thing that was a little different in this is the high school athletic funds that we normally hadn't seen in the 1.7 million. Maybe, Darrell, you want to talk to what that was? Because generally, most of this had historically been just modular unit moving, I guess.
Yeah, what we've done in years past is that it's more of a grant opportunity for high schools, and it's really around capital. It's not around, folks can't use buy uniforms and things. It's around fixing life safety kind of issues, in athletic facilities, gyms, stadiums and things like that. So it's not money that they can use freely. It's money that they send a request in, and it's all capital related items.
Gotcha.
Questions, comments?
Is it not true? In the past, that used to be the practice to do that. I just don't know if the dollars are about the amount that I recall, but I don't remember which source they were paid out of. Is this the source they were paid out of?
That's the source. It's like it's the same source. It's about $216,000. So it's allocated about $18,000 per school.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Thanks. All right. Agenda item 13 is an amendment to the 2018 Forsyth Technical Community College Capital Maintenance 2/3 bonds Capital Project Ordinance to approve additional projects. You've got an amendment to the 2020 Forsyth Tech 2/3 bonds. Yep. Turned over to Kyle.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Forsyth Technical Community College is requesting approval of additional projects based on savings that that have been realized from other projects. For example, the 2018 Forsyth Tech 2/3 bond CPO, capital maintenance CPO, included roof replacement at the West Campus, which came in under budget. So there's a balance of about $130,000 in the 2018 CPO. And then the 2020 Forsyth Tech Community College 2/3 bonds CPO included a chiller replacement at Ardmore Hall, and that's projected to realize about $60,000 worth of savings. So they've got about $190,000 for additional projects, and they are requesting to use $151,000 of those to replace a chiller up at the Northwest campus, and then $30,095 for it's the Bob Green Hall Controls Project. And I'm happy to try and answer any questions you have, but this is really just reallocating funds.
Questions? Okay.
All right. Next item is also Kyle's. It's a resolution approving recommendations related to requests received for consideration of funding through the American Rescue Plan Act for Affordable Housing Sub-Initiative and Gun Violence and Crime Prevention Sub-Initiative. You got an associated amendment to the Pandemic Response Special Revenue Fund.
Sure. And so, as the manager said, this item is necessary to formally approve recommendations related to 2 sub-initiatives related to the American Rescue Plan Act, and also amend the Pandemic Response Special Revenue Fund to align some expenditures that have been approved by the Board of Commissioners in prior meetings. And so on the amendment side of it, as far as what we're doing on the amending of the Special Revenue Fund, if you'll remember when we set that up to receive the ARPA funds, we set those funds up initially in a budget reserve. As you know, the county's hired Aisha Carter to be our ARPA administrator, and her position would be funded using these ARPA dollars. In addition to Aisha's position, it's become very clear that we will need additional assistance based on all the compliance requirements that we are continuing to learn about, as, through the School of Government and through the Pandemic Recovery Office guidance. And so the first part of the amendment would be setting aside funds for 2 positions over 3 years, as well as some administrative costs. And then the other part of the amendment is to set aside funds for premium pay that the board approved on October 7th. And so that's the amendment to the to the special revenue fund. In addition to the amendment to the special revenue fund, this item also formally directs staff to carry out recommendations related to the affordable housing and the gun violence and crime prevention sub-initiatives. Specifically, there were 7 applications related to affordable housing that county staff was recommending be referred to the city of Winston-Salem and/or the local municipality for consideration where the requester's project was located. And then with the gun violence and crime prevention sub-initiative, there were different recommendations, including having the sheriff's office negotiate an interlocal agreement with the city of Winston-Salem and the town of Kernersville before that request is brought forward for consideration by the board. There was a request from the public defender's office that staff is recommending be denied, as that's really a state responsibility. And then staff was recommending the applications from Action for Equity and the Youth Collaborative be referred to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council for further evaluation in line with in conjunction with the Cure Violence Program. And then there was one other application from the Wells Center, and staff was recommending that be referred to the FY23 behavioral health funding process rather than ARPA dollars. And so I know that I kind of went over a bunch of stuff there, but happy to answer any questions that you have about this item.
Commissioner Martin had made sure that we didn't put a dollar amount there on the Cure Violence
Correct.
piece going over to JCPC, but we'll wait on the Cure Violence report that should come out here shortly, and then we'll regroup on how much the dollars you want for that initiative to flow through JCPC.
That's good. Okay.
You expect Cure Violence to report soon? I thought it'd be January.
So their goal is November 30th. I do know they'll probably be a couple weeks later just because we're having to make sure we schedule meetings with all of the stakeholders, but it will be soon.
Okey-doke.
Very good. Thank you, Kyle. Item 15 is also related to the American Recovery Plan Act, so I asked Lee Plunkett to come forward. It is lacking some details, but that's because we feel like we'll have those details filled out over the next month before we get back on December 2nd. But it's a resolution approving county policies and procedures to aid in administering American Rescue Act Plan Act.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yes, as Dudley said, we are lacking the policies and procedures right now, but we are working towards that. We've got a group of folks that are putting them together, pulling the current ones we have so we can update them, specifically around the federal regulations that we need to add to those policies, and then creating some new ones around the grant itself. So we hope to bring those to you soon, but they are on their way.
Good attitude.
Any questions?
Questions, comments?
Could I ask a question? I don't know if this would be the appropriate place to ask this, and I'm sure the board would have to vote on it. But I have a true concern about these projects that we will somehow continue to fund them, and we will continue to grow government if we do that. Is there some way we can have these folks understand that this is, 3 years, and there's no, we're not going to be in the game of funding projects. It's up to them to find the funding.
So my understanding would be, and they would have to go into agreement with us, execute an agreement, and we would lay out the period of performance is what it's called in the federal guidance, and what we would lay out in the agreement. So they would know that the funding would end as X date based off the project that we would proceed with.
So that's in the paperwork, more or less.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's always been there is in our budget ordinance, it's one of the last sections of the ordinance, and it directs staff when we enter grant agreements with special appropriations and agencies, that there's a specific statement that there's not, there'd be no expectation with this grant that funding would be continued. So we already have that. Maybe we can use some of the same language in our ARPA stuff, since there's going to be a larger number of those kind of things.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Lee, appreciate that.
Out of curiosity, Chris, is it raining outside or do you just want to sit by your umbrella?
It was raining when I came over.
Just answer the question, I'm sorry.
All right, no worries. We have a couple of grant matters. Item 16 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of ballistic vest for the Emergency Services Department and to accept a donation of $25,000 from Piedmont Regional Trauma System Incorporated to use toward the purchase of them. Kyle Wolf.
Yep. And so Forsyth County Emergency Services Department is requesting permission to purchase some ballistic vests for its staff due to the increase in violence when they're responding to certain calls. And so they're proposing to purchase 80 Safe Life Defense First Response Level 3A Plus enhanced multi-threat vests. They're bullet, strike, and slash protection. They would be purchased in various sizes, and they would be checked out by staff when they come into work, and then they would be returned at the end of their shift. That way, they don't have to buy over 200 some vests. They can share them. The total cost is $46,363.06. The department has also received notice from the Piedmont Regional Trauma System that it would pay for half the cost, up to $25,000, paid directly to the vendor. We're still working out all the details there as far as whether they're going to actually give the money to the county or pay directly to the vendor. We'll have that finalized by December 2nd. And so they did bid these out informally. They looked for different quotes, and this was, I believe, the lowest quote that they had received for these vests.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I was just curious, they're being shot at when they go pick up someone?
I don't know that it's happened in Forsyth County, but I know that I have seen stories across in the national news of that happening, for sure.
Yeah, we've got a tactical unit with EMS that has all that equipment and is sort of specialized training with that. This would allow based on the call type where there I don't think the expectation is that the EMS workers are going to wear them all the time. But if they get a certain type of call, particularly domestic violence is one of the worst, that they would actually have those available to be able to put them on when they go to the call. So unfortunately in our world, that has become more of a norm, actually. And Commissioner Wisdom, I believe, was set in the first meeting, because she's actually on this Piedmont Regional Trauma System board, and they voted in that first meeting, I believe.
That was my very first meeting, and I was just going, well, great. Let's bring it home. I really was, I will tell you all that I am serving on that board because I'm taking the place of Graham Pavere to fulfill his term. And it's been a learning experience.
Very good.
Okey doke.
All right,
Is this a multi-year project?
This is a one-time purchase. This is a one-time purchase.
Yep. I mean, I was just looking at the last part of the attachment. Talks about a series of things over as 21-22, 22-23, and 24, all the way up to 24-25. With different maps. I'm sorry, maybe I just missed it.
I think it's a different item. This is for the vest. It's a one-time purchase.
I jump ahead here.
Yeah, I believe you're at item 17. So I'll go ahead and introduce item 17.
Okay.
So
Right, it did jump to the next. I apologize.
Kyle Haney's going to come up. He's going to review a resolution authorizing acceptance of a 2021 Historic Preservation Fund matching grant to continue the Forsyth County Architectural Survey update from the Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So since 2017, this board has authorized the Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission to apply for and accept grant funding from the Historic Preservation Fund. So this is a matching grant, and these funds have gone towards the Forsyth County Architectural Survey update. So that, the last 3 grants that we received, those went towards the research portion of that. We were notified that we received an FY 2021 Historic Preservation Fund grant this year in the amount of $15,000. So this resolution would accept that award. This would go towards the first phase of writing the manuscript for this update. The grant actually requires a match from the local government of $25,000. Just like in previous years, the county would provide half of that amount, with the participating municipalities providing the other half of that. And just for reference, those participating municipalities are the Village of Clemmons, town of Kernersville, Louisville, Bethania, Walkertown, and Rural Hall. So the second part of this is actually a budget ordinance amendment to budget the acceptance of that award and the expenditures to do that work. There is expected to be 2 additional phases of this. So a second phase of the manuscript writing, and then a third phase, which is the publishing of the book of the findings of that. And so traditionally, the municipalities are providing the funding to us, and we are the administrator of that because we are the certified local government. The third part of this is an interlocal agreement with those municipalities for the next couple phases so that we would accept those funds. And so that's where it did get into the next couple fiscal years, because this will be this fiscal year as well as 2 additional fiscal years where this process plays out. And so that interlocal agreement would handle all of those. We would accept the donations from the municipality. The total amount that the county, including the contribution for this year, could be putting towards this process over the time period is $82,500. However, the Historic Research Commission will be applying for additional grant funds in the future years that could offset that. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. All right, item 18 is a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and MCCI LLC to provide digital automation for adult and family children's division using Laserfish. And I'll turn it over to Liz White. She's going to come up and review that. This is a project you've heard Liz talk about. It's saving space, time, and money. So,
good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the third and final phase of our project. Was up here last year, kind of explained this. This year, we are bringing family and children's and the adult division in. This is a resolution authorizing a contract between Forsyth County and MCCI to provide the automation for adult and family and children's to go into Laserfish. This will also include the migration of about 14,000 documents that we currently have that are adoption documents in our DocuWare system, and it'll bring those also over into Laserfish. Any questions?
Comments, questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate that. Item 19 is a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor and collector amount of $9,098.56. This is a little bit unusual in that it is a discovery, so if I could ask John to come up and just talk about the highlights of this one.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item is a little bit unusual in that it is a request for a release of unpaid property taxes. This particular account is a business personal property account that was randomly selected for a compliance audit back in 2019. Upon examining the property owner's financial records, we originally believed that we needed to discover almost $1.4 million over a 6-year period. In working with the property owner back and forth over this time period, which is a long time, we now understand that about $578,000 is the true amount that should be discovered. Since this went on for so long, we went ahead and created tax bills and to preserve our right for this discovery. And once I did that, the only way to undo this portion is to actually come before the board. So that's why we're here today, is to ask for a release of a portion of the discovered amount. And I believe the supporting documentation, would help explain the numbers for you, but just wanted to give a little background as to what we were.
You just want us to say go for it, right?
Yes, sir.
Questions or comments? Nobody says anything against it, so I don't see a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. Appreciate that. October 21 contribution-based benefit cap report's the only report. And that is it, Mr. Chairman, except for a closed session matter to discuss some items related to property acquisition.
Shall we adjourn for about 3.5 minutes and then do the closed session?
We can go ahead and adjourn, and then we'll
That's
go
what
into closed session to be done. That'll be fine. Anything else for the board?
All right, go for it.
Okay. Need to ask the board to consider a motion to go into closed session to discuss a matter to establish or to instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the public body in negotiating the price and other material terms of contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease pursuant to General Statute 143, 31811A5. And since there's no other business to come before the board at this meeting, following the closed session, the meeting will be adjourned.
Mr. Kaplan makes the motion, I second the motion. Adjourn.